I feel crazy today. I just wanted to tell a story. Something like a story. I can't. There's nothing I can do to get my mic out of the shot. There's plenty of things I could do, but I'm not going to do them. So years ago, I'm going to say this is probably around spring of 2010. In fact, I think I actually remember that it was in May, around Memorial Day and my friend Erin's birthday. I went through this thing that I call my Harry Potter renaissance. I've been into Harry Potter since I was like 6, reading the books and seeing all the movies for all those years. I always loved it. It was always a big part of my personal life. But then in my early teen years, my interest in love and Harry Potter just kind of naturally faded. I wasn't thinking about it as much. I was into other things, and, you know, middle school is just weird. But then I remember this day in May of 2010, I believe. It was one of those ABC Family Harry Potter weekend marathons, and Order of the Phoenix was playing. I think my sisters had it on. And I came out of my room, and I was kind of half-heartedly watching what was going on. And it happened to be the moment of Sirius Black's death in the Department of Mysteries. And it, like, hit me hard. It wasn't like I had never seen that scene before. I'd seen it many times, but I just maybe hadn't thought about it for a while. And Sirius and Remus Lupin had always been my favorite characters. But I saw that moment. It was more so the shots of Remus holding back like an inconsolable Harry, and I just got extremely sad. I went back into my room and I was like filled to the brim with emotion. I had never really cried at Harry Potter before. I didn't really have that kind of emotional articulation at that point, but I think I was developing it. I still didn't cry that time, but I started to obsess, and it felt new to me. I started reflecting on all of the nuances of the situation. Harry, who was the very same age that I was at the time, he was 15, I was 15, losing all composure, having watched the closest tie he had to his parents, the closest thing he had to a father that was given back to him just 2 years before, fading away into nothing, never to return. And then the layer that weighed even heavier on me, the fact that in that moment, Remus was the one who had to stand up and hold him back, whisper that there was nothing they could do, while his loss, I would argue, was greater than Harry's, though I know that, I know it's very wrong to measure one's pain against another's, but it was his best friend who had also been given back to him when he probably never thought he would be happy ever again, after he'd spent 12 years thinking he was a villain who took away his little family from him, that their years of friendship had just been a lie. That poor, strong, sensitive, wonderful man losing everything all over again and having to be the one to tell the kid that it would all be okay. I had never really thought about Harry Potter that deeply before. I had never really thought about my favorite characters as fully realized humans and thought about all their pain between the lines and behind the scenes and the way the relationships work. But I started to in that moment, and then I didn't really stop. That summer I realized that I couldn't really remember a lot of the events of Deathly Hallows because the movies hadn't come out and the book had come out like 3 years before. So I reread it, and that's the only time I ever reread a Harry Potter book, and honestly, any book at all. I fell into fandom. I read MuggleNet every day. I started listening to MuggleCast. I started to understand why my favorite characters were my favorites, what endeared them so much to me, and my love for them grew. Something had just breathed new life into the world of Harry Potter. It was a brand new kind of magic to me, and it filled me with so much joy. And it was a good time for it too. We were waiting on the Deathly Hallows movies to come out, so there was tons of news all the time, constant discourse. Everyone, oh so foolishly, thought that we were approaching the end of the Harry Potter era, and it was a really bittersweet, emotional few years for fans. How stupid we were to think that JKR would ever shut her mouth. Which is kind of why I'm talking about this. Eventually, that newfound fanaticism kind of faded again and made way for other things, and I spent high school falling hard and fast for new media properties with large, busy fandoms, and Harry Potter just wasn't on the forefront of my mind anymore. Then in college, I started a strange little venture with my friend Justin. Sturgis Podmore wasn't quite what I would call Harry Potter fan podcast. It was more an outlet for our fond cynicism. We delved deep into the wild minutiae that is cataloged to an unimaginable degree on the Harry Potter Wikia, and we griped about the constantly developing unwanted news about Fantastic Beasts and the Cursed Child, and developed our own theories and arguments about why the Wizarding World is the way it is and how in God's name that school even ever turned out a single well-adjusted, well-rounded graduate ready to embark on adult life. We stopped the podcast after about a year, but Justin and I still have pretty frequent discourse about deep Potter lore and all the ways the current franchise is kind of destroying its integrity and whatnot. Last week, we went and saw Crimes of Grindelwald, and I'm honestly not even going to talk about it because it was bad and weird, and man, I hate Dumbledore, that shitty man. But it did make me inexplicably happy because I just love standing in that world so much. I couldn't give less of a shit of what happened in that entire movie, but it does send my mind down all these different rabbit holes of how this relates to the future lives of my favorite characters. You know, how supposedly what happened in the 1920s in the wizarding world in some way sets the course for the tragedy that befell James and Lily and Remus and Sirius and people around them in their youth, because that's the stuff that really gets me going. That's the stuff that feels so real sometimes that it feels like my own history. The stuff that makes me cry because I feel so deeply for them. Seeing that godforsaken movie kind of recalibrated my brain to Harry Potter obsession. It's been 4 days now, and my brain is still a Harry Potter hotbed, and this kind of days-long obsession binge reminded me of the first time I had that strange little Harry Potter renaissance. It had me wondering if maybe this is a bit of its second coming. It makes me happy, and kind of, you know, artificially so, but it reminds me that these kinds of stories are the ones that invigorate me with life, the kinds that I want to write myself. These stories that I feel truly taught me about pain and loss and humanity in ways that I am incredibly privileged and fortunate to say that my own life has not. I feel very crazy when I cry about Harry Potter, which only really happens when I talk about it out loud for some reason. I started talking about these kids fighting. It's so sad. I just love his parents so bad. They had such a short time. They died younger than I did. That kind of freaks me out. That doesn't even happen when I'm just reading about the very same stuff alone. I think JKR made some really fantastic characters that carried me through my adolescence and into my adulthood, and I just wish she'd stop. I don't think that whatever she does to bastardize her own world is ever going to change how I feel about the bits that I hold most dear. Let's hope she doesn't come close. I don't really know what the point of this was. I just had it buzzing around my head. And I know I didn't finish my November videos. I don't care, and I know you don't either, whoever you are. So I just sometimes like to make videos about the stuff that I want to just like sit down the nearest person and expound for an hour, but I want to do that without actually having to take up someone's time and energy. They got Sirius back just 2 years later, like that reckless idiot. And then Harry gets to fuck off, drop out of school, and somehow become head of the FBI, which I'm sure none of his hardworking classmates were angry about at all. I'm done.